All right, I hope you guys are doing well. We're going to move on today with today's lesson with the Russian Revolution. Before we get there, I'd like to remind you that your bell ringers will be due tomorrow. We will have one tomorrow, so we will have 4 total for this week. So once that lesson is done for tomorrow, I'll just have the bell ringer just because you guys will be just submitting your presentations. All right, so you're going to have 4 bell ringers due for tomorrow. Okay, obviously wait for the one for tomorrow before you post it. And then your presentations are due tomorrow. So I'm going to put the assignment up right after this one so that you guys have that ready to go. And you can just submit your presentation any time. So you can do it tonight if you'd like. You can do it tomorrow morning. You can do it all day tomorrow. And I'll have it due for Monday, okay? I'd like you to turn it in on a Friday so I can give you a grade over the weekend. I think that would be, beneficial for you as well, so you can see what grade you have going into next week, and that I can get the grades in as quick as possible. So try to turn that in for tomorrow. Again, I'll have it posted right probably today, so you can post that as today if you'd like. Again, you don't have to submit your slides if you're recording your slides. I think that's the easiest thing to do because obviously I can see your slides as you're presenting it. So if you want to, just send me the link to the video. It could be a YouTube video. It could just be a movie clip, whatever you want to use. But I just need you presenting your slides. So if you have your slides in your presentation, obviously you don't have to be in the presentation, just your voice explaining the presentation, then that will be good, okay? Because I already can see the slides on the video. All right. So make sure you have that completed. Make sure, again, your bell ringers and your presentation, that is due for tomorrow. I will put a due date on it, so no need to worry about it. And if you post it in late, I'm sorry, you're going to lose points. Okay, make sure you have a primary source. That's a big thing, okay? If not, if you can find a political cartoon, that would be great. But try to find a primary source. Do some research, okay? Citations, big thing, okay? Make sure you have your citation page at the end. If you don't, you're going to lose points. So make sure you guys are really looking over the rubric and looking over the expectations. All right, so real quick, let's go over this here. All right, so obviously you went over the Zimmerman note, the Lusitania. Russian Revolution is what we're going to talk about today. You can put that down as a vocab term if you like, but I'm going to describe it, obviously, in today's lesson. So there you go, Russian Revolution. Check that out. And then here's the bell ringer for today. So describe the home front in America during World War I. Detail how American supply ships made it to Europe during World War I. There you go. So I'll give you a few seconds if you want to. Please pause the video because I'm just going to continue on. I'm going to move forward. So I'll give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, moving on. So describe the home front in America during World War I. Many of the industries, the factories were shifting towards obviously creating weapons, army, war supplies, you name it, to try to prepare for this war. The United States hasn't been in a war since the Spanish-American War, and we all know that that was called a splendid little war for a reason. It didn't last too long. It was only 6 months. So the U.S. really was just new to warfare, especially trench warfare and the use of the Navy and this new battlefield in the air. Okay, this was all uncharted territory really for the U.S. They weren't prepared for this style of fighting, this type of weaponry being used in World War I. And it was a very scary thing for many Americans. But obviously, the U.S., these citizens, these younger men were optimistic. They wanted to go fight. They wanted to show how macho they are, right? And they wanted to show how dominant they are to the rest of the world. And really, they were shocked when they saw all the new types of weaponry with airplanes, different types of chemical warfare, machine guns, tanks, you name it. Okay, there was many different things that shocked these men as they went to war over in Europe. But on the home front, okay, we talked about some of these agencies that were created by the government to try to really build up and try to make an attempt to create this large, huge military. And we went over the War Industries Board. We went over the Railroad Administration to try to transport resources and supplies to these factories, and in order to try to make these supplies quicker and faster. Okay, so transportation. We're building on that in the U.S. because of this war. We need to try to get our resources to our factories, to our businesses quicker. Like I mentioned with the War Industries Board, trying to shift peacetime, finalize good making towards towards war supplies, any type of armaments that could help our soldiers overseas. The Food Administration. So it promoted conserving food with propaganda, right? We talked about that and make sure that people aren't wasting food. It also promoted farmers to create an oversupply of food to send overseas for our soldiers. Fuel Administration, okay, so to try to save up on fuel, there's curfews at night to make sure that people weren't just really gallivanting, driving around. It was really promoted to try to preserve fuel in order to save it to send over in Europe for the soldiers fighting, because no one knew how long this war would last. National War Labor Board, okay, so this was trying to solve disputes in industries to make sure that things were working appropriately, efficiently for the war effort. And Committee on Public Information to make sure that really media was censored to try to show that support for the war. If there's anybody talking badly about the war, then obviously with the Sedition Espionage Act, that they would be treated with fines or maybe jail time. So there's a lot of things that the government tried to instill and tried to really in place for the United States citizens in order to try to prepare for this war and get them more involved. And like I mentioned before, the U.S., we weren't ready for it yet. So this was a huge adjustment for the United States. All right, so today, there you go. There's the bell ringer. Obviously, that's the third one for this week. And you'll have one more tomorrow. So please try to submit those bell ringers along with your presentations. I'm going to have the post up here soon, so please post those for the assignment tomorrow. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the Russian Revolution. If you want to, there's a good reading about it on page 594, okay, to 595. Moving on here with that, and please check out the video that I've posted. Okay, that explains the Russian Revolution even more in detail about what I'm about to go over. So there's a lot of things that obviously you can use to, help you out with that and to understand what actually happened with the revolution a little bit more in detail. All right, so moving on here, the bloody stalemate. So the Central Powers, they took advantage of the exhaustion of the Allies from years of combat on the Western Front especially. Okay, we know that Germany was a more dominant power than Great Britain, France, Russia. Okay, but when they all combined together, we know that the Allied powers had an advantage just because of their location. Russia on the east, and we have France and Great Britain on the west. Okay, and that was a real big obstacle for Germany with this war. But because Germany was so far advanced, they had really better weaponry. Okay, and because of the stagnant fighting style with trench warfare, this really created a stalemate for these countries, and it just really showed who could last the longest. And although the Royal Navy, like we mentioned with Great Britain, had control of the seas, the U-boats, the submarines destroyed a lot of the supplies and armaments coming into Great Britain. So many of these people were starving on this island, right? Great Britain's an island. They need these resources from their territories, from other places in order to survive. And Great Britain knew that they couldn't last too long, okay? Not only that, France obviously was just kind of holding on by a thread. And we know Russia being this country that was kind of weaker. They didn't go through the Industrial Revolution like what these other European countries, what they went through. And they were struggling. They were struggling hard. Like we mentioned before with the Russo-Japanese War, Japan embarrassed Russia in this war, and many viewed Russia as this inferior power, especially in Europe, right, where a lot of these new advancements, these modernization, westernization was occurring. Okay, let me see if I'm just presenting here. Yes, okay, and with that, with Russia, their czar, his name was Czar Nicholas II, so make sure you remember that, Czar Nicholas II. He was pretty much the king of that time, and he forced his people to work as slaves in his own country, really. And he was trying to make an example with this war, with World War I, and he wanted to try to bring support or morale towards his leadership with the people in Russia. So that's why he joined World War I. Okay, yeah, Serbia. We know Serbia being a little brother, right? We know them as being a little brother of Russia, and they needed help and assistance from them. But for the most part, Tsar Nicholas II saw World War I as an opportunity to prove themselves and to show themselves as a world power and to try to build morale in Russia. Obviously, that didn't work. Okay, they weren't as advanced as what Germany was. Although Germany was split in two different sides, right, fighting Russia in the east and fighting Great Britain and France in the west, they still struggled. Okay, Russia could not compete with even half of what Germany had. Okay, so still that was a stalemate, right? And with the environment, it was very tough for the German soldiers, even the Russian soldiers, to fight in this type of environment. It was very cold. Okay, which we'll even talk about more when we get to World War II. All right, but with Russia struggling and Tsar Nicholas II having issues with his own people, it came to a boiling point. This was 3 years now, right? 3 years into this war, and many people were starving. Not only soldiers that were ill-equipped, that didn't have the resources, the army supplies, the war supplies that they needed to keep fighting Germany, but even the citizens, the people that were trying to support this war. Again, they're like, why are we in this? Okay, what's the point of being involved? Okay, this really doesn't have anything to deal with us. Serbia, who cares, right? Although they're our little brother, we don't see the point of being involved. So with Russia being involved in this war, many of the people, the citizens, tried to lead an uprising and try to overthrow Tsar Nicholas II, and that's what happened. Okay, it was actually a lot of different violent protests to the point where Tsar Nicholas II was even using his military to fire on the people to try to push them back and try to stop the rebellions. Obviously, not working out too well. And once he gets overthrown, there's some moderate, I guess you could say almost like an oligarchy that would take power. And they were still supportive of the war. So they were still pushing Russia involvement in this war. And many people think actually it was a plan by Germany to start this revolution, which is very interesting. So Vladimir Lenin, before he was in Russia to lead this huge communist revolution, this Bolshevik revolution, which we'll talk about, he was actually in jail in Germany. Okay, he was in prison there. And as this war prolonged, and as Germany knew that they were fighting two fronts and they couldn't keep it up, they sent Vladimir Lenin back to Russia. Okay, he was in jail in Germany because he was trying to inspire a lot of the socialist ideals and this government control of businesses, manufacturing, you name it. So Lenin was a prisoner in Germany, sent back to Russia. Okay, Germany thought, well, if we send this man back here, that start this uprising, this violent uprising to the point where they have government take over and to try to solve the issues here in Russia, then that will pull them out of the war, which it did. It worked, right? It worked. So Lenin goes back, starts this Bolshevik revolution. Okay, and real quick, a Bolshevik, make sure you note this. A Bolshevik is a group of communists. All right, these are people that are really trying to establish this socialist, this communist government, okay, where government would take control. So Bolshevik, that's on page 595 if you need spelling. Obviously, I can't really write anything out for you. So the Bolshevik Revolution, okay, we have the bourgeoisie, the proletariat. I'm sure you guys learned of that already. Again, check that out on 595. It describes that a little bit. So when Lenin takes control, his first goal, his plan is to try to pull Russia out of the war, and that's what happens. Okay, pulls Russia out of the war, and he pretty much states that we need to try to focus on ourselves. We need to try to establish this government, control of private industry, equality amongst everyone, and to really just focus on themselves. And that's what happens. In 1917, Russia leaves World War I, and this alleviates the Eastern Front for Germany. This allows Germany to focus all their manpower, all their supplies, all their armaments on the Western Front, which really looks bad for Great Britain and France. And many people consider Russia leaving the war was one of the reasons why America was getting involved, because Great Britain's pretty much on their last limb. France the same way. And as Russia left, Germany could focus all their attention on the Western Front, which promoted and pushed the U.S. even more to get involved. They didn't have their trading partners with Great Britain, okay, with all these territories all across the world, with France, right? This could be detrimental for the United States business and industries, factories, you name it. So this kind of pushed the U.S. into the war even more. All right. With that, we're going to talk a little bit about the Central Powers launch an attack, obviously, on the Western Front because Russia left, okay? And this creates the Soviet Union, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to World War II, how the Soviet Union now is going to try to rebuild and try to become an industrial power. And they do that in very terrible ways, right? They try to almost push and prime industrialization to try to push it on their own people, which we'll describe with these 5-year plans when we get to World War II. All right, so American troops enter the war in large numbers, right? They're energetic, they're healthy, they're ready to go, they're ready to fight. And then once they get to World War I in the trenches, it's not what they thought. Okay, again, many of these soldiers, American soldiers, they were not ready for this style of fighting. Okay, they were kind of new to it, and they lived on rural farms, right, out in the ranches, and you name it, out into these areas with really no people around. Okay, and no tractors, right? There's many people didn't even have a truck or a car, you name it. So they go to war in Europe, they see tanks rolling at them, armored vehicles with machine gun fire, poison gas, airplanes flying over top their head, artillery. Okay, there's many different things that shock these American soldiers as they're introduced in World War I, which caused a lot of effects moving forward for these soldiers and just war in general. Although there's not many videos or pictures of World War I, this was really the first sighting that's really pushed toward many people towards and against war. And you'll see more groups trying to disprove of the action of America's involvement in war. Obviously, when we get to World War II, we'll see a strong support for that war in America. And then when we get to Vietnam, okay, with media coverage, video, pictures, you name it, many people are not really wanting of this war at all, and they really don't see the point of it. All right, so there you guys have it. So make sure you remember Vladimir Lenin, okay, the Bolshevik Revolution, okay, how they overthrew Czar Nicholas II because of famine, low food, low supplies, mistreatment, okay. And make sure you guys check out 594 to 595. It describes that a little bit more. And check out the video I just posted online. Okay, that should help you out a lot with the Russian Revolution and even more in detail. It talks about the White Revolution, you name it, and how that was a larger issue as well. Okay, and remember, bell ringers, I have one more for tomorrow. I'll post that up a while so that you can work on it and get that turned in for tomorrow. I want to try to get all the presentations in for tomorrow so I can grade them. Okay, because I like to have them all done before we get back on Monday. Okay, so again, record your presentation. You don't have to be in the presentation, just your voice, just describing it. Okay, and you don't even have to send me your slides if you videotape your presentation, which you should, your slides. Okay. All right. So take care. Have a good one. And make sure you guys post that for tomorrow. All right. See you later.